Okay, then we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Stuart with SAI, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for spending some time with us this morning. We're going to be turning the time over to Mark in just a little bit. He'll be presenting a little presentation on organizing your work with job info in Flexi, how to help you be more efficient with your time and using Flexi to increase your output. And Mark has been in the sign industry a long time. He's owned several sign shops, and he's been teaching and training folks in Flexi for years, and so he knows all sorts of tips and tricks. So not only will he talk about using job info, but after the presentation we're going to open it up for a Q&A session for about 15 minutes. So you can go ahead and ask any questions. So if you have a question during the webinar, you can go ahead and type it up in the chat window, whether it's about job info or just another question you've been wondering about Flexi. Mark is the man with the answers. We will be posting the video up on YouTube, so if you want to go over parts of it again later or you want to share it with a friend or employee, we'll be posting that and sending you out a link so that you'll have access to it whenever you like. And with that, we'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you so much, Stuart. I appreciate that introduction. And folks, thank you for joining me today. I'm sure we'll have a few more log in here and there. There's over 100 folks listening, so we appreciate so much your time. It won't take long to go over this, but it's one of those options or features in Flexi that's been in the product for some time, but a lot of folks miss it, and there's some good reasons to organize it. It's really working with your jobs. When you think about organizing your work, think about how many times we start up a job and we just start designing and so forth, and we don't actually save it, or if we do, we hit save and maybe we don't name it properly or something like that. I just kind of did a word cloud here with Untitled. I went into one shop one time, and just about every job they had was named Untitled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it was kind of just jumbled around. You had no idea what these jobs were. Well, job info and job statistics and things like that can help you with that. It might be, you do a job for a person or a company, and then several months may go by, and then that same company comes back, and maybe they just want another repeat of that job. So how do you find that job? That's another thing that we're going to talk about today. So it's really a discussion of how to manage your jobs and get some things done. And a couple of windows that we're going to be seeing is the job info window, which allows you to input information like job numbers and PO numbers, the price of the job. There's a lot of information that's stored, that can be stored with your particular Flexi job. So that's very important. And then we're also going to find a job, and we're even going to see how putting this information in, if you take just a couple of minutes to do that, it will enhance some of the templates that you can either build or use in Flexi as well. So let's get started. We'll jump right into our presentation here. So we're going to switch over to Flexi. I'm using Flexi 12 right now, but I think you'll just any version will have this. It's been there for quite a while. So what are we actually talking about here? Well, let's just open a file first of all. I'm just going to open a file, and I'm going to go to this one right here. And this is just a bitmap. So what we've done is we've started creating a job, okay? So there's things we're going to do with this job. We may take this job and we might say, oh, we need to vectorize it. So we go into vectorize and we choose, color down here, and we tell the job that it's got 4 colors in it, okay? And then we vectorize it. And sure enough, it changes it into a nice vector piece of artwork. And, we might resize it. We might be using this for a T-shirt, or it could be a sign or something, a banner, whatever the case may be, right? So if I were to just go over here now and just save that job, right, just save it, all I'm doing is just giving it a name and saving the job. That's all that's happening, right? Well, I'm gonna do something else here. What I really want to do with this job is I want to go to the edit menu, excuse me, and right at that near the bottom, there's 3 things down here. Job estimate, we're not going to go over today. That was a previous webinar. But there's statistics and job info, which is nice. So let's start with job info. Before I save the file, I would go into job info, and I can see this nice menu here that allows me to type in some information. So I can give it a job number. If I've already done pricing on it, I can give it a price that, per unit that I'm using, something like that. Who took the order, the PO number and order date, and some things down here on the bottom that I find even more important than some of this information, okay, the description of the job. And the reason is when we start to look for jobs in the future, we can actually search by the description of the job if you want to. So you can put in here something like, I'm using this is a vectorized logo that I'm using on a 4x8 plywood sign that's going in this neighborhood at this address. I mean, you can really give it a good description. You can also type in comments about the job. So let's say that for the red and the yellow, you had to order a special kind of vinyl, or if you're doing this in vinyl, or if you're using a profile for printing that's very specific to this job, you could add things like that to the comment section of the job as well. And then also on the keywords, I would put things in like, it could be simple descriptions like banner, vinyl, wide format printing. Give it some categories is really what I want to do here, and that way, and again, you'll see in a moment, we could search by keyword. And then it's real important on the customer tab, you can actually type in information about your customer related to this job. So that means that you would have your name, the address of the person, the email, the fax number, and so forth. And this is nice because, again, if you need to recall the job and you would have their phone number already there, you could update this information. It's kind of like a little database for you. And in the statistics, it's interesting there. It actually gives you some things like how much cut length is this. There's 185 inches of cut with your cutter right now. It's an 8x5 image. It's got 4 colors in it. How many objects and how many characters if there were lettering like fonts and so forth. And a little bit of statistics are involved here now. So I'm going to close this one temporarily because I've already got one that I filled in, and I'm going to open it up so that you can kind of see the information as it's filled in. So here's the same job. I did the job info already. So if I go back to my job info, you can see I've typed in some information here, some dates, PO numbers. In my comments, I put, repeat customer. In the keywords, I put print, cut, decal, those kind of things. For my customer tab, I typed in all the information, Sheldon Cooper, Big Bang Theory, Hollywood, the address and email them. By the way, these are not true numbers. Don't call him. He won't answer. And then my stats again are over here, So it's kind of interesting that you can put all this information in, right? So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. This is a great way to record information about a specific job. Now let's use that information, okay? So let's close this one out. I'm going to go back to the edit menu, and I'm going to go down to, the file menu, and I'm going to go to find file. So let's say a little time has gone by. I'm going to click on find file, and basically here, I can actually find different files. Like I want to find every file that has the word take in it, or it has the word Bazinga, or has a name. I remember the customer's name. It was Carl something. You just remember the first name, not the last name. Those are kind of things that you can do. Then you can direct the program here to say, look in this folder. So you can actually search if you guys are using, say, a server. You could search your server folder if you wanted to, or you could just choose, I wouldn't do it because it would be a pretty big search, but you could choose a hard drive like the C drive or D drive and would search the entire hard drive, right, for that. And you can include the subfolders. So if you're storing jobs on a, say, external hard drive or on a server, and it's maybe you're categorizing them or something like that, you can go to that folder and then search subfolders as well. So here's how you can search. You can say, all right, I want to search by all these different ways. I can search by job number, by company name, zip code. Imagine this now. Imagine what you're doing here. So you could say, how many jobs did I do in my zip code area? Boom, boom, boom. Just type in the zip code and you can find how many jobs you did. They'll list them over here. Or you could search by terms or by description or comments, like we said. We're going to search keyword, okay? Or I'm going to say search by keyword, and I want to do everything that has the word print in it. So I'm going to look for, maybe I'm using that as my search term. I'm using this folder. All right. Sorry. I don't want to do the name. I want to search by contains. So keywords contain the word print or some part of it. And I hit search on here. And then what it does is it went in and it looked at that folder, and all the folders, all the jobs that have that category called keywords that name print, they show up down here. And you get a preview so you can actually see what the job's going to look like, right? You can actually see what the job's going to look like. So if this is the job I'm actually looking for, this Take 5 job here, I can now just click on job info, and guess what? It gives me those two tabs. It tells me what the job was, how much I charged for it, the customer name. So if the customer is called in by phone, I could quickly search for the job, bring it up, type on job info, and say, yes, that was $50. So you already know what you charged them before without having to go through your files and figure things out. That's a nice way to use this, right? Once you find that job, if that's the one you want, you can just open it, and it'll open right up into your screen here, right? So it's a good way to search and find a particular job, all right? Now let's take this Take 5 job that we've got here, and we'll use it in what's called a template in Plexi. So remember, I have this particular job, I've got all that job info included. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, take this job, and let's go to the file menu over here, and I'm going to show you a couple of templates. Let's apply a template. Now you can make these on your own, but we've included some with the software. So you should all have these, all right? So there's one in here called job info, okay? I'm just one job info, two job info 3, right? So let's start with job info 2 just for a second, all right? I'm just going to select that. And watch what happens here. It takes your job, it throws it into the template, so you still see your job here down at the bottom, but up at the top up here, it's actually giving you information about that job. This is the job info that you typed in, all right? So it's giving you that information. In this case, it's also telling you, who the customer was, and it's even telling you there's 36 colors in this job, right? If there were fonts in here, it would list all the fonts over here, so you know what kind of fonts are being used in this job and so forth. So this is one template that's being used that allows you to just get info about the job before you produce it, right? So that might be something important to you. Another way to use this, here's my job info right here. And remember, I had already put the pricing in and so forth. And if I have to send this to my customer, it's very possible that in my templates, I might want to choose job info 3. And what that does is that gives me a template that looks like this one. It shows you your piece here in the middle, but notice what it grabbed down here on the bottom. It grabbed the information about the company, the address, the phone number, and so forth, right? Over here on the right-hand side, it shows the job number and the size and the estimate for the job, so it even gives you the date for this job that I'm opening right now. This is where I just want to make one comment about comments. If I put a comment in there and I said something funny like, I don't want to deal with this customer anymore, well, it's going to show up in here, right? So what's nice is you could still go in here and change these things. See, they're actually changeable. So if the price has gone up, a little bit, and you want to send this to the customer, and now it's $75, you can still change that right here on this template. So there's no panic there. What I would do at that case then is, after you've got this printed out and are showing it to the customer, right? I'm going to close that. I would go back to my original job here, and then I'd go down to my job info, and I would change it right here as well. And then next time, it's updated, right? So that's kind of a cool thing, really, really cool thing. One other area that might be helpful to you, if you look at the edit menu and I go down to job statistics, it's right below job info here, job statistics. It's a fairly complex menu, but basically what it's showing you on the left over here is every closed contour, every compound, every part. It's the way this is actually the way the image was made, right? So it's showing you how it was made and the different parts and so forth. And then it also shows you some of the parts as far as the height and width of a particular part, you know. So if you can identify these path names here, you can do that by just clicking on the image over here. It would actually show you how much the cut length is and so forth. And what I also like here in the statistics, I kind of like this, where it says space, it actually shows you what kind of color space is being used. So this particular job that I'm working on, it actually shows me that I'm using some process colors, but I'm also using quite a few CMYK colors in here. So somebody probably designed this in Illustrator maybe or something, and you know, that used CMYK color space to create it, and that way I know. I mean, obviously another easy way to do this is just select a part of the image, and when you go up to your little palette up here, it'll actually identify that as a CMYK. But the list in the job statistics, what I like there is that it just tells you the entire job, so you can kind of glance and see what you're dealing with. You know, is there a spot color in it? Is there a mixture of RGB and CMYK? It kind of helps you identify some issues you could be concerned with in terms of printing as well. So that's kind of job info. It basically started all with when you design a job, it just takes a few more seconds, and I would highly advise doing it. I know I've talked to a couple of Flexi users that are actually taking advantage of this, and they really like it, primarily because when they fill out this information here, it helps them to use those templates, whether they design them themselves or not. There's a good way to use these templates and get that job information that you're looking for there. So I would highly recommend that everyone use the job info. Try to spend a little bit of time in there. It will probably help you in the long run. The more you do it, obviously, the more habits you develop. And then in the long run, it's going to help you start identifying things. And I would take full advantage of the find file area here. After you've put in a lot of jobs that have that name, you know, why not search by a zip code or search by keywords? So you literally could say, all right, I want to find out, and I don't have any in this particular example here, but I want to find out how many, maybe one of my keywords is banner, right? So I want to see how many jobs am I doing that are banners? How many jobs am I doing that are print and cut? How many, you know, use those keywords very carefully to identify and categorize your jobs. And then you'll be able to search things, you know. When you search for these jobs, like there was no file find there, no problem. I didn't do any banner jobs. But when I hit print, all right, and then I search again, well, I've got 2 print jobs. And this kind of helps you to see, get a quick glance at, you know, what am I doing? What kind of jobs am I really, people coming in and ordering over the last date of time, you know, that sort of thing. So a good way to really work with this, and I think this is going to be a very, very good capability that all of you should take advantage of. So with that, only about 15, 16 minutes of your time, and I hope it's going to save you a few hours of your time as you use job info. It's a very, very good capability, and it's well supported and flawless in any version of Flexi, so no need to worry about versions. It's pretty much that easy with Flexi. I would highly recommend that you visit the thinksai.com website and investigate where we're doing our Flexi Live training. Also, if you want more intensive training, check out the training DVD that they've got available as well in the store, .thinksai.com. And folks, I want to tell you thank you again for watching. Stuart, we are ready for some questions if we want to talk about some of those things.
Okay, so if any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask Mark about job info or just about Flexi in general, go ahead and type those into the chat window and we'll start taking those. And so Mark, I was wondering, for a typical job, how long do you think info?
Well, let's see. I never learned how to type, so it takes me a little longer probably, but it's just more about, maybe a minute or so at the most. Sometimes I didn't fill in all of the information, but I did put in the critical stuff. So definitely customer name, first name, last name, a phone number, an email. Typically the price I put in there because I wanted to know that, and the keywords were very important to me. Those are the big things that I filled in.
Okay. So you can use it even if you're not filling out everything, even a couple fields.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You could just do keywords if you wanted to.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. So let's see. It looks like we've got a couple questions here. Jill wants to know if the templates you were using, if you created them, or if they were standard.
The ones that I was using just now, when you go to the File menu and under Templates and choose Apply Template, these are the ones that were actually included with the software. So the Flexi folks are giving you all of these templates here. So that some of the ones that I just used were in there like this. So like my Job Info 3 was there. And basically, I think we did a webinar on templates. I'm not sure, but I'll open up a template and show you in case you want to use it. I'm going to select this one. This is actually what a template looks like. So basically down here on the bottom left, this particular template had the customer name and company. These are called placeholders or dummy variables, I guess you would say. And basically what it's about is that you're designing this, and then this is what's being used by Flexi. And the customer name that we typed in Job Info is stored. And when it sees this little placeholder, it puts that job info there and substitutes the job info. So all of these templates can be altered if you want, or you can design your own. And for that, you just want to go ahead and study a little bit in the templates menu here. They're very easy to make and alter. So those are included, the ones that I use today.
Okay, thank you. So let's see here. We have a question from Mike. He said, I lost my default color palette. Is there a way to get it back?
Default color palette. I'm not sure of the exact question there, but sometimes if you lose it like that, if that's what's happening, you can go to View up here, Swatch Table, and click on that, and that will typically bring it back. If that doesn't do that, you can right-click on just go to View. Anything down here, just right click on this, and you can actually open up tables. So in other words, you can access all the tables, and generally speaking, it will go to this menu where it says Library and Table. And when you go into Table here, you'll see one that says Default, and that will open up your default swatch table. So typically what will happen is sometimes this will close, or maybe we accidentally close it. The easiest way is just View and then Swatch Table. Excuse me. And then sometimes it gets hidden, like especially if you're using dual monitors or if you're doing some fancy stuff, it can get, placed in a location on your screen where you can't see it very well. So you might want to look around on your screen as well. That might help sometimes.
Okay, so it looks like Mike commented. He said that he thinks he overwrote the palette.
Yeah, that can happen. So in other words, what will happen is you will, maybe add some colors in here, or maybe you altered the default palette and you want some of the old stuff back. So basically that disappears when you save it, and you save it as default. You're overriding the original one. Now there's a possibility, okay, that you can go to your regular Windows menu here. But I would avoid doing this, but I just want to show it to you. And sometimes what you can do is you can go to your SAI folder, and there's a thing here called the Install Manager. And basically what that does is that reinstalling the program. It lets you get rid of the preferences, which is basically what you've done, and reinstall the program as it was originally out of box. But I say avoid that because that would be like overhauling the engine because it needs a tune-up. I would instead just search for maybe somebody out there, you can email them and they can send you the default swatch table. Might be able to do that from tech support even. So why don't you call tech support and ask them for the default table? They might be able to send it to you.
Okay, perfect. So let's see, we've got a question here from Mark. Hopefully it's not you, Mark. Okay, so he says, I have a problem with the send now. I can't seem to get it to do send and change the settings not taking.
Okay, so let's say what I think he's talking about is when you get ready to cut or print something, you choose your cutter or printer up here at the top. So we're going to allow that. That's fine. Okay. All right. So it gets to this point here. Let me resize this a bit so we can see it. Give me just a second here. We have little screen monitor resolution issues from time to time here with this program. Okay, good. Okay, so if I'm getting ready to print or cut this, on the left-hand side over here, there's a send mode, and your choices are send now, hold and list, and save to file. So presumably, I'll repeat that question again to me, Stuart. What was the issue?
I can't seem to get it to do send now.
Can't seem to get it to see. Okay, so when you click on send,
not taking.
Yeah, so when I hit send, what is supposed to happen is that if it to a, like in this case, I'm using a Mutoh 1638, right? So if that's my printer, right? And it says the printer up here at the very top, then that should actually send it directly to the queue that's being used for that printer. So that's what will happen. So first thing is I would look up here at the top and make sure that if you have different devices up here on the very top left-hand side, make sure the device that you're trying to send to is selected. Okay, that's the first thing that I would do. The second thing that you might try is when you're in Production Manager, and let me open Production Manager here. Let me stretch that so we can see it a little bit bigger. Okay, so here's my Production Manager here. So if I have a device, like in this case, I have a Mutoh ValueCut or a Mutoh ValueJet, either one, doesn't matter. When I have that connected, right, and I right-click on that, I can do what's called changing the port, okay? And if I click on that, it brings up a menu, actually a test button down here on the bottom of this menu. It says test, and basically all that's for is after you put in your communication addresses, whether it's COM1, COM2, whatever, whether it's a TCP IP address as they call it here, basically lets you click that button and it will say communications success. That indicates that you are connected to your printer or cutter. So you might try that too. You could go to Production Manager, right click on the name of your printer, click on change port, and then just click test and see if Flexi is actually communicating with your device. If it is not, that's the reason why Send Now is not doing anything. If it is, there could be some other issues. I don't know what they would be. That would be a tech support problem that you'd have to get some tech support on. That's how I would kind of go about finding out what's wrong with that.
Okay. And then, let's see, Tabitha asked about editing the templates, and I think you covered that and kind of going over.
Yes, and I would look on your YouTube page because I think there may be either a webinar or a video on templates, so be sure and look on there.
Okay. Then we have a question from Rick. He said, do we add the info into info and it automatically applies to the template? Or how do we add the info only once and it appears on all the templates?
Right, yeah. When you go to your edit menu and job info, right, for this file now, for this one file here, so I've typed in my info here, customer name and all that stuff, right? When I click OK and I save this file, that job info is saved with the file. So no matter which template I choose now, if there's a part of that template that has the placeholder that I showed, like customer name or the colors or something like that, basically what it's going to do is it's going to use it in any template that I choose. So here's one called invoice, for instance. So if I select that one, it actually gives you kind of a quick invoice thing here, and you can see in this particular case, it's actually showing who to bill it to and who the job number was and, you know, all that kind of stuff. This is just info that I had typed in for this particular job. And again, this is editable. You can edit all this stuff. So, you know, it's saved for every template. As soon as you save it for the job, every template can access it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mark. And we have another question here from Jill. It says, if you have two Flexi programs can you have color palettes and fonts sync so they're the same on both computers?
Yes, that's that's pretty easy to do. What I would do for the color palettes actually is I would right-click on the color palette that you're trying to sync with the other computer and click on Save Table As, and then you can actually save that to a flash drive or something like that and open it up on the other computer. Now, when we say sync, sometimes what we mean is, well, if I change the color on my color palette, will it show up on the other one? That is not going to happen. Now, you could, if both people, if you're storing it, say, in a common location, let's just say you store it on some server location, that sort of thing, and then each computer is accessing it from there, then they probably would sync pretty well. But to share the palette, you would have to copy it onto each computer. The same thing is true with fonts. Fonts typically are from the Windows font directory, so the Windows font directories would have to match to sync your fonts.
Okay, excellent. So that looks like all the questions that I have so far. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to type those in. John did say that he looks forward to doing a webinar on using textures as backgrounds.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Take note of that, and that would be a great topic for a future webinar.
Sure. Excellent.
Thank you, John.
Excellent.
Okay, and I think that's everything. And if so, we'll go ahead and let you folks go, get back to work. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today and talking about how you can use Flexi to be more efficient in the shop. And we'll be sending out the link to the webinar recording. We'll be posting that up on YouTube and getting that to you pretty soon.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Enjoyed my time with you this week.
Okay, we'll see you folks next time. Bye.